Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Christmas TAF Book Promo Party. We have a wide variety of authors joining us this evening, 16 total, with a very eclectic array of books, all different types, all different genres, all different forms. Everyone's eager to talk about their book. Everyone gets 5 minutes, and there's also the opportunity to ask the authors questions if you want to. So we're going to kick off with Deanna Martinez-Bay. Deanna, it's all yours.
Hey, Don. Thanks again for having me. I'm here tonight to talk about The Ultimate Guide to Easy Desserts, which is my latest cookbook. Quick little story is it's actually part of a 3-book series, and there'll be more to come. But the first one, The Ultimate Guide to Cheesecakes, I thought was going to be a standalone book, and now I've got 3. So kind of funny how that worked out. But The Ultimate Guide to Easy Desserts is available on Amazon, and it talks about different desserts, and what they are, and then it gives you the recipes and little tips and tricks on how to make the recipes. Would it be okay maybe if I read the back?
Sure.
Okay. Yep. So, do you find yourself spending too much money buying store-bought desserts? Have you tried baking desserts at home to find they require too many ingredients that you don't have on hand? The Ultimate Guide to Easy Desserts offers you a way out of store-bought, expensive, chemical-laden desserts. Learn simple recipes you can make in a snap. Discover desserts you may have never heard of before, what they are, and how to make them. And then it talks a little bit about me and my baking. So basically, that's it.
Are the recipes yours, your creation?
Oh yeah, they're all mine, and they've all been tested, and they're all recipes that I make regularly. So I also include my my email at the back if anybody ever has any questions about any of the recipes. But basically, so chapter 1 is about the trifle. Chapter 2 is the icebox cake. Then you've got no-bake desserts. And then you've got different bar recipes. Then you've got semi-homemade, and then dessert snacks and easy cookies. So that's everything that's included in the book.
Deanna, how did you get involved in cooking and baking?
I just grew up in it. I'm from New Jersey, and our family is Italian. And my mom was always baking something, typically like cheesecakes and cookies and a lot of family recipes, and I include them in my books. And then as I became an adult, I would just bake for all the family gatherings and get-togethers and things like that. And then people started suggesting that I start baking and selling my baked goods. So I did, and I became a licensed cottage baker, and here we are today.
How many recipes are in the book?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I mean, I can count real quick if you got a second.
No, it's okay.
A lot. Look,
there's a lot.
There's a lot, and I mean, it's not a super thick book, but there's a good amount of recipes and information in there. Probably out of the 3 books, The Ultimate Guide to Cookies is the thickest of the 3, and they're all available on Amazon. None of these are on sale right now. Amazon put a bunch of my books on sale, but none of the cookbooks, and I'm not sure why. But some of the other ones are half price right now, the novels and novellas.
Does anyone have any questions for Deanna? All right, Deanna, thank you so much. That sounds like a wonderful book.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have to be an experienced baker to really get a lot out of this? Could someone like me do it?
No, absolutely. Especially this newest one, the Ultimate Guide to Easy Desserts. They're all easy, really easy. You can do it, Don.
I'll try it and I'll report back.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deanna. Lois, your turn. Lois, you're there. There you go. Perfect.
I'm Lois Bartholomew. I joined TAF when we lived in Clayton, North Carolina from 1994 to 2009. After we moved away, I kept my membership in TAF. I know a good deal when I see it, and TAF membership is one of the best deals around. So I'll tell you just a little bit about me and then more about my book. I was born and raised in central Utah, and I loved the mountains. One of my favorite hikes growing up was to the top of Mount Timpanogos. It's 11,750 foot high mountain. When I grew up, I found that becoming a published writer is kind of like climbing a mountain. To get to the top, you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other until you finally reach the summit. You can enjoy the waterfalls and wildflowers and the lakes you find on the way, but if you stop there and forget your goal, you'll never see the magnificent view that can only be seen from the very top. I love to teach and talk about writing, goal setting, and reading to both children and adults. And I still love to climb mountains. While working as a full-time mom of 10 children, I wrote articles for newspapers and adult and children's magazines. My first novel, The White Dove, was published in 2000 by Houghton Mifflin Company. In 2008, I wrote to them and got my rights back. I recently published The White Dove as an ebook, audiobook, and paperback. So now you can join me on Tasha's adventures. You can find it, it's young adult. You can find it at online retailers and by order from your favorite indie bookstore. The audiobook should be available in 20 to 30 days. I'm just getting going on this. I'm new to it. The White Dove will be published to Overdrive, so ask your library to order a copy. Now for the book. A princess, a patriot, and a prisoner. Now Tasha must set her feet on an even more dangerous path to join the man she loves in a fight for freedom. The old man turned his chair so that he was by her side. I have a gift, he said simply, for you and the child. He pressed a small bundle into her palm. Without looking, she knew what the old man had given her. It was a necklace, a braided chain of rawhide fastened to a small wooden dove, its wings outstretched in a flight to freedom. She and Raina had not been forgotten. Back in July, I don't think Margaret's here tonight, but back in July, I mentioned researching a skinny cow. Margaret asked about her, so this part was for Margaret. As Tasha and her ward Raina prepared to escape the compound where they had been held prisoners, the white-haired man Ari approached them. I'm afraid we will have to leave tonight. Tonight? Tasha looked up at the clouds scudding across the sky. The storm will help us. The night will be dark. Come to the stump beside the barn as soon as the house is silent. Tasha, Raina said softly, are you afraid? Tasha looked into the trusting eyes of the child. No, Raina, she said, I'm not afraid. Ari will help us and God will protect us. She gave the small hand a gentle squeeze. There's no need to fear. Together they walked inside. The evening meal proceeded as every evening meal had since they had been forced to come to this place. The only difference was the small cup beside Raina's plate. With the snow melted, a few skinny cows were allowed on pickets outside the walls to graze on the new spring grass. One of the cows had calved 3 weeks ago, and tonight there was a bit of milk for the few children. The author Nancy Lowen wrote this review. The White Dove is both a good old-fashioned adventure tale and a modern fantasy with a strong female protagonist. Tasha is the daughter of a principled king who abdicated the throne because he believed in democracy, not aristocracy. Now Tasha's father is dead, and another man, Comnor, is falsely claimed to be king. No overindulged princess, Tasha aligns herself for the resistance and actively fights for her father's dreams. This fast-paced book combines the accessibility of contemporary fiction with the stateliness of the old classics. And this is my book. You can find it on Amazon, and it's also on several other storefronts. And let's see, you were talking about something earlier. Anyway, it will be available in public libraries because it's published to those marketplaces as well.
Terrific. When was when was the book published, Lois?
Originally?
Yeah.
In 2000, so it was a while ago. But
It sounds like a great story. Does anyone have a quick question for Lois about her book? Okay, Lois, any concluding thoughts?
Well, Oh, now I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, I hope if you read it, you enjoy it, and you should be able to get it and request it from your library. I would love for it to be in libraries.
Sounds great. Lois, thank you so much. That sounds like a terrific book. Drew, what do you have for us tonight?
Good evening, everybody, now that I'm unmuted. Thank you for doing this, Don. This is a wonderful opportunity. My book is The Joyful Brand. You may or may not be able to see it. You can see it kind of, it's got a lot of reflection. It's personal branding for authors, speakers, and the rest of us. As a creative, you probably recognize that you are unique. All human beings are unique. Your uniqueness is a key to selling your works. So your personal brand is critical to success. It's not enough, all of us have learned, just to write a book. If you write it, they will not come unless they know it's out there and have a compelling reason to want to read it. And that's where your personal brand comes in. Readers seek a connection to their author, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. They really want to get to know that author, and that helps them to get connected and also to recommend the book to other people. So that's how the personal brand can help you. Now, I said all of us are unique. How many here can describe how you're unique in 25 words or less? Yeah, it's a little tough to do. It's a little like brain surgery. You don't want to do it on yourself, actually. So that's the reason I wrote the book, is to help people to be able to discover and unearth what their personal brand is. And so the book includes around 20 exercises of different types to help you to put together a personal brand, to get your idea of how you want to present yourself through your brand. Personal branding should shine through everything you do. I always think of a personal brand as like an umbrella that covers everything you do, so that when somebody sees something that you've done, they say, oh, okay, that's something that Don did. That's something that Karen did. That's something that Elizabeth did. I know that because that feels like those people. And that's what the personal brand will help you to do. Your personal brand shines through everything. It shines through your writing. It shines through your messaging. It shines through the way you speak and what you say. It shines through your actions and how you appear to other people. Just as it's interesting that we have a lot of fiction writers here. Fiction writers spend a lot of time developing a character. And in fact, I've recently read somewhere that we are attracted to characters in ways that are beyond how we're attracted to actual other people. We sometimes feel closer to a character in fiction than anybody else. How does the author do that? The author does that by knowing that character inside and out, what drives them, what motivates them. We owe it to ourselves to know the same things about ourselves. And that kind of information is the basis of a personal brand. So you want to answer 3 questions in terms of building a personal brand, and that's what the book is about. First is, how are you unique? And the second one is, what do you have to offer the rest of the world? And the third one is, how can you make the world better? By answering those questions through this series of exercises, you're able to build a sense of yourself that you can portray in Zoom, you can portray it in the grocery store, you can portray it in what you write, you can portray it on your website. All those things work because you have a centralized personal brand. If you don't have a personal brand that you've developed, you have a personal brand by default. I suggest that you have one by design. That helps much better. So the book is on Amazon. It sells for $19.95. They've discounted it to $16.95. But if you email me, I will send you a signed copy for $14.95, because I'd like to make a deal to people in TAF. So if you or anybody you know could use this information, let me know, and I'd be glad to connect with you. Thank you.
Awesome, Drew, thank you so much. Anyone have a quick question for Drew? Maya?
Drew, I'm curious because the word brand is probably considered the other cuss word that begins with a B for most creatives. So how do you feel? I mean, and have you, in talking to writers or other creatives, have you gotten any pushback? And someone's like, I don't want to be a brand, or, you know, and how do you deal with that if you have received any pushback?
Very simply, a brand, the kind of brand you're talking about, is created from the outside so that people will go buy whatever that is.
Yeah.
A personal brand is built from the inside, and it stays the same. Your external brand changes with campaigns, but your personal brand is something that you're going to keep throughout everything that you do. And it's not something that you go yell and write and do advertisements for, or that kind of thing. It's what's sitting underneath it. It's the foundation for that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Awesome, Drew, thank you so much. That sounds like an awesome book and of great value to a lot of people in this group. Appreciate that. Arlene, what do you have for us?
I have Jane Austen. And why are we talking about Jane Austen after 200 years? Because she's funny, she's witty, she's got great characters. And if you've never read her books, but you've seen her movies, you'll enjoy this book. This is Jane Austen, Thoughts and Opinions, an Anthology. And I came up with this idea after Karen Weiberg invited me to join Jaza when she found out that I was a Jane Austen fan. So I rejoined and came up with this idea. And this book is not for scholars, it's for the common people. It's for us who have ideas and thoughts about the movies, who's doing what, and who's a better actor, and who they should have left out. That's what's in here. We have our Lauren Clemens, who is a Taffy. She took Jane Austen to a modern day courtroom. There's Lisa Tomei has a poem in there about sisters, and we all know about what Jane Austen thought about sisters. She adored her sisters. And also Lisa Barron also has an article here on Jane Austen and inspiring perfection. So it's a fun book, and Jane Austen's name comes up in the weirdest places, in cozy mysteries, in blogs about how to write, and Winston Churchill had his assistants read to him from Pride and Prejudice when he had pneumonia, which he was probably in the bathtub at the time. But there's all these famous people who have been avid fans of Jane Austen's. It continues today. Surprisingly, after 200 years, her writing is still relevant. But the book is really about our thoughts, common thoughts, discussions. So that's pretty much it. You can check it out and peek inside if you go on the Amazon website, and Don has the link. But if you would like to have a real deal and buy it at $10 a copy, just email me directly instead of the retail price of $15. And if you want to buy 3 of them for gifts for Jane Austen fans of, and etc., then you can get them for $8 a book from me. You know, and shipping is included with those prices, so you don't have to worry about that either. I mean, if it's going to be a gift, let me give you a gift. That's pretty much all I have to say. You can check out more on the Amazon site, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Anybody?
Everybody get in line now.
I just want to say I already have my copy.
Thank you, Karen.
Are you in it, Karen? You're in it?
I am not. I'm not.
Next volume.
Next time.
I have a
Maybe next
question.
time, yes.
Somebody,
I have a question.
oh, yes, Mark?
Arlene, I've never read any Jane Austen. If I'm going to pick a book and read it, which one would I get?
What should he start with?
Yeah.
That's tough. I would probably start with Persuasion. How old are you? Are you? I shouldn't say how old are you. Are
Pride and
you?
Prejudice.
Are you over 30? If you're over 30, start with Persuasion. Very good book and very different from her other books.
Pride and Prejudice. That'd be my vote.
Pride and Prejudice, yes.
Light, bright, and sparkly.
Have you ever seen any of the movies?
Nope.
I don't know. Maybe, possibly. Okay. That's a place to start. Thank you.
There's also the movies that were Clueless and what's her name's Diary? Oh, what a time to lose my voice. So they're still making movies that are spin-offs from hers today that I'm sure you're familiar with. But yeah, I encourage you to get hold of her books and read some. She's got great characters. And if you can, get to see a movie first. One of her
That's a good
movies.
way in.
That's a good way in.
Arlene, thank you so much. This sounds like a really fun volume.
Thank
It
you, Don, for
does.
doing this, for hosting this.
Sure, absolutely. Elizabeth Caldwell, tell us about your days as a flight attendant.
Hey, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
Mhm.
I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And speaking of holidays, everyone has that one person on their list that is impossible to buy for. And my book is a perfect solution. It's an easy, entertaining read with lots of humor. I just retired from being a flight attendant for 28 years. And every time I came home from a trip, I had more stories. And everybody kept telling me, you need to write these down. So guess what? I did. And here it is. Dear passenger, welcome to my wacky world as a flight attendant. I know there's a glare. So people have told me that they've enjoyed my book so much because they go to a party or a family gathering and they start sharing my stories, or they're elbowing the person next to them and saying, you will not believe this. For instance, one time I was on a flight and I was working with a really good friend of mine, Ruth. Well, Ruth and I were on the meal cart. This is back when we served meals on airplanes. And we had 250 people that we've got to serve really fast. And all the passengers always are looking at us like, hurry up, hurry up. And the beverage cart is right behind us. They're hot on our on our heels. They don't want to stop. They want us to go as fast as possible. So the very first row, I start out and I said, yes, what would you like for dinner? Would you like beef or chicken? Would you like beef or chicken? Would you like beef or chicken? And you go back, so about halfway back, and I start getting faster because I'm, going faster and faster. Would you like beef or chicken? Would you like beef or chicken? And you have to repeat it. They don't listen from one row to the next. I'm repeating it each row. I got a little bit further back, and this big burly man on the window seat yelled out, yes, I want some of that beaver chicken. And I looked up at him, like to look at me, he was serious. So I served him the chicken and did not say a word. After all, doesn't everything taste like chicken? So then we kept moving back toward the back of the plane. And on the very last row, of course, we're out of the chicken entree. So this Latin man was sitting there and I said, sir, would you care for the beef for dinner? And he said, no, I require chicken. And I said, sir, I'm so sorry, but we're out of the chicken. No mas pollo. Would you like the beef? He said, no, I require chicken. It's on my boarding pass that I require chicken. And Ruth was involved now. Both of us said, well, show us your boarding pass. right there, big bold print was check-in required. So we cracked up laughing, you know. That's what we did. I had a good time. I had a good time on my flights, and you know, it's a lot of entertaining, good stories, and
Can
everybody.
you tell us what airline you worked for, Elizabeth?
I worked for American Airlines, but you will not find it in this book anywhere. It's a generic book about all airlines because I don't want to be sued by any passenger that recognizes themselves in any of these stories. So don't tell anybody. But that's my story, and I hope everybody supports all the TAF authors. And my book is $15 on Amazon.
Any quick questions for Elizabeth? All right, that sounds like a fun story, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Marcus, you're up next.
Everybody hear me okay?
Oh,
yep.
The other Mark, sorry.
Hello.
My apologies, yeah. Mark T. Sorry.
Marks. When I was a kid, like most kids growing up in the 60s, I built model kits, plastic model kits, and it was mostly airplanes and cars, you know, like most of my friends.
Mark, we can't, if you're talking, we can't hear you. I wonder if it happened to Mark too. Mark, we can't hear you.
Oh, I know everybody's frozen.
Mark, it looks like you're having some connectivity issues. Mark, we're going to come back to you. See if you can fix whatever issues you've got going on, and we'll come back to you, okay? Can you hear me? Mark, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. All right, Dewey, you're up next. Anyway, oh, before you do that, this is Mark's book. It's called A Weirdo World, The Art of Bill Campbell. Not getting anything. All right, we're moving on. Dewey, you're up. Can't hear you either. Karen, did we crash?
Can you hear me, Don?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Dewey? Can't hear you.
Okay, so he's muted.
No, he's muted. All right.
Dewey, you might check your audio settings. It's the little arrow next to the microphone, just to make sure you're connected to the correct microphone.
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yes.
go. Perfect.
Okay. That's working okay now?
Perfect.
Great. I hope that you can get to hear Mark later because it's a great book.
It is a good book.
My name is Dewey Cassell. Thank you, Don, for the opportunity to come talk. The book I'm talking about today is this book about Marie Severin, who was a comic book artist for years. She worked for Marvel Comics. And I realize what you're probably thinking is, I'm not that big of a comics fan. But the truth is, it's a really great story about a woman who is highly successful in a field that's been predominantly run by men. And most of the artists, most of the editors, and most of the publishers have been men for years. And it's still the case today. But Marie was successful starting back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, in being an artist and a colorist and an art director for years. She started out working in the late 40s and 1950s for EC Comics. That's the company that used to publish Tales from the Crypt. And she was a colorist for EC. And she later went on to work for Marvel Comics and was extremely well respected by Stan Lee. In fact, there's an interview with Stan Lee in the book. She drew the Hulk, she drew Doctor Strange, and she drew the Submariner, which hasn't gotten his own movie yet, but he will eventually, I'm sure. And she was also an art director for Marvel for years, from like 1968 through 1972. She literally designed every cover of a Marvel comic book that was published. And she would have 3 months worth of comic books on the wall behind her so she could keep track of what scenes they used on the covers, what colors they used. Because back in those days, it was a newsstand kind of thing. And they wanted kids, when they went into the newsstand, to know that it was a new issue. And so she controlled all of what the covers looked like for about 4 or 5 years for Marvel. She went on to do advertising and promotional work and was just a tremendous artist and creative person. And one of the things she was most famous, though, for was her humor. She had a tremendous sense of humor. She would love to draw cartoons in the office at Marvel. And when something would happen that she found amusing, she would draw a cartoon of it. For example, one of these days, these two artists who were sitting next to each other were talking about wondering if you could build a car that ran on springs. And so 10 minutes later, there was a cartoon hanging up on the wall that showed one of the guys sitting in this car that was on springs, and the car was bouncing along, and the other guy was hanging onto the bottom for dear life. So she had a tremendous sense of humor and shared it with everybody and became known, really, I think, primarily for her sense of humor. She was a delightful person. She had really strong friendships. It was interesting hearing her talk about working in a predominantly male field, and that she didn't feel a great deal of misogyny, personally, during that time period. But she certainly witnessed the guys in less than their best circumstances. She talked about working in an office one time with a bunch of guys where they all rushed to the window, and she didn't know why. And she went to go find out what they were looking at, and it turned out it was some woman in a building across the way who was changing clothes or something, and they were all ogling her. So personally, because she was very quick to say that the guys were always very respectful of her, but she did certainly face some of that kind of thing in the work environment. But she persevered. She was very successful, and she later, unfortunately, got dementia after we did the book. And ended up in a nursing home. And when I would ask her, about how she was doing, or ask her something about something she'd worked on before, she'd say, "Well, I can't remember, but that's why I'm here." And one of the last times I saw her in the nursing home, I asked her how she was doing, and she said, "Well, the place is pretty nice here, and the food is good, and there's nobody that I want to kill." And I thought, well, okay, that's a good sign. Yeah. So at any rate, it's a delightful book. There's lots of people in the book, women and men alike, who talk about what an influence that she was on them in terms of their writing and their drawing. She had a big impact on a lot of people and was really a pioneering woman in the field. And the book is largely black and white, but it does have a nice color section with some color examples of her work that she did in a variety of ways. And the book is published by Tomorrow's Publishing. That's like the word tomorrow, only with an S on the end. And right now they've got it on sale for a mere $10 a copy. It originally retailed for $24.95, so they're practically giving it away now. And it would be a great gift for you. And I think, as I said, even if you're not a big comic book fan, I think it's an inspiring book in terms of what this woman was able to accomplish and the influence that she had on the people that she worked with and on the industry that she worked in. So I hope that you will give it a try, and hope you'll enjoy it.
I have read Dewey's book. It is a wonderful book. Whether you're into comics or not, it's a great biography. Dewey, was this a Eisner Award winning book or nominated?
An Eisner Award nominated book. Yes, we did not win, but
That is still pretty
like
darn
they say,
impressive.
it's nice to be nominated.
Yeah, you can't, and also Tomorrow's Publishing is based here in Raleigh. John Morrow actually spoke at a TAF meeting a while back. So you're supporting a local business if you buy Dewey's book from them. So Dewey, thank you so much. Mark, you want to try again? Mark Cantrell?
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Hey, all right then. Yeah, I got a
Can I
new
ask a
laptop.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, before you do, I'm sorry, Sherry, do you have a quick question for Dewey?
Yeah, this was one of the few times I wanted to ask a question. Dewey, what caused you to think to write this book? Where was the inspiration from this book?
It's the second book that I've written, and I met her at a convention, a comic book convention in San Diego back in 2001, and just found her to be a delightful person. And we struck up a correspondence, and I approached her about the idea of writing the book, and she was game. And so we spent several days together, and it kind of grew from there. And she really loved the book. She used to carry the book around with her at the nursing home and show it to everyone. So.
Yeah, she was a seminal personality in the comic book industry. So thanks, Sherry. Okay, Marcus.
I got a new laptop and I had forgotten to download Zoom on it. So it sent me to the version online, which apparently doesn't work very well. So anyway, we're back live. We'll do it live. When I was a kid, most of the other kids growing up in the 60s, I built plastic model kits and mostly planes and cars. And, that was pretty much all there was. And then one day I walked into the model shop and there was this thing. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I'd never seen anything quite like it before. And so I didn't get much of an allowance, so I couldn't afford the Universal monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, and my parents wouldn't have let me have them in the house anyway. But I could afford $1 for that kit. So I went home and I built it. And what I found was that they didn't look very much like the box top. But when I grew up and I became a writer, I started trying to find the guy who had come up with these kits. Didn't think about it much when I was a kid because you just think they just come out of nowhere. And I found a guy named Bill Campbell, and he was a fine artist as well as developing these model kits. He and I, at that point, it was kind of like Dewey's experience. He and I started corresponding. And the next thing you know, he's starting to send me all of this original art. And so I started putting it up on my walls. And my walls got full, so I put it in the closet. And I thought, I really would like other people to be able to see this stuff too. So I started shopping the idea of a book around, and finally found a publisher with Schiffer Books. And so it's one of these deals where you do most of the work yourself and most of the promotion, but they will do the printing of it and they will do they will distribute it for you. And so it turned out to be a pretty good experience. The models were called the Weirdos. And so the book is called A Weirdo World, The Art of Bill Campbell. And I didn't really care for the name. I had a big, nice, long name for it all set to go. And the guys at the publishing company said, the problem is long names don't sell. And he said, the minute you put a book with a long name out, sales plummet. So I gave in because I wanted the money. And I wanted to, people to be able to see what Bill had done, not just his work with model kits, but he's done a lot of advertising work. He worked for Keebler. He worked for a lot of the big companies on Wall Street. And he also did fine art. So he was thrilled with the book. He lived until about 96 years old and was simply one of the nicest people I've ever met. When I showed him the book, his eyes really lit up. I took it down to Atlanta to show him. And when I saw his face and how happy he was, that was really all the payment I required. I've probably made the money back that I put into the book, and that's about it. But making this guy happy was just kind of a thrill for me because he'd made me so happy over the years. So it's called A Weirdo World, The Art of Bill Campbell. You can find it on Amazon or at Schiffer Books. Thanks.
Any quick questions for Marcus? Okay, Mark, thank you so much. And I have that book also, and I can tell you it is a great, and it is a big book. It's a big, thick book with a ton of art in it. It's just a beautiful volume.
Well,
Erica Hoffman?
I know you got one because I gave it to you.
Erica Hoffman, are you with us? Erica, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Can you
Yes,
hear me
we
now?
can. Yes, we can.
I think you can hear my dogs now when they hear my voice. Yeah. No, I think I suffer from, it's called glossophobia, where you don't like to be videotaped or recorded. But anyway, you can hear me all right, and you can look at that picture of the phone. My novel is called Why Mama? And I think I referred to it. There's an echo on this, isn't it?
You're okay.
Okay. You're okay? Okay. Why Mama is a novel that I wrote, and I got it published because it won first prize in a contest that Bill, oh gosh, now I'm Bill Kane, I think. Library Partners Press out of Wake Forest University sponsored the contest, and you had to send in the first chapter, and I won first prize, and so they published it. So it was traditionally published, although by a very small publisher. Why Mama is not my first novel. My first novel was called Secrets, Lies, and Grace, and that was published by another small traditional publisher, Comfort Publishing, out of Charlotte, and I think that went defunct. I started writing not that long ago. I guess it was around 2008. My elderly father with dementia came to live with us, and I quit teaching the school where I was teaching, North Chatham, and I sat at home with my dad, and he watched a lot of repeats of Gunsmoke and things like that he remembered from his middle age. And so I thought, well, I always wanted to write. I was an English major. I did teach English. And so I started writing a novel. That was the first one. And then I went to a conference, the Harriet Austen conference down in Georgia, when I was visiting my mother-in-law. And there I learned to start small. You shouldn't start writing the first thing. You shouldn't start a book as your first thing. So that was a mistake I made. So while I was at that conference, I talked to a lady, I think she was a preacher's wife, Sheila Hudson, who heard my story about my dad. And she said, why don't you write that up and send it to A Cup of Comfort for people whose families deal with Alzheimer's. And I sent it, the first thing I sent off, and it was accepted. I got paid $100. And then there was, at that conference, there was a lady who was talking about chicken soup for the soul. And so I wrote another story about my daughter and her writing essays trying to get into college. And that was accepted. I got paid $200. So I was on a roll around 2010, and that's when I wrote my first novel. Since then, I've been published about 400 times, but it's mostly nonfiction, essays, stories, like the ones you find in Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'm in 15 of those. Anyway, Why Mama is my novel, and it's a mystery. And I find fiction incredibly harder to write than nonfiction. Because nonfiction, I know the story. It's something that's happened to me or something I heard about. But fiction, you have to make it believable, and yet you're making it up. However, I'd read so many stories about kids who lost their parents to murder suicide that I thought that's what I want to write about. And I thought how the child must feel when, oh, I think my time's up, isn't it?
I can give you one more minute.
Okay, that's great. So that's what I wanted to write about in this, about what a child does when the sheriff tells him or her, in this case it's a her, that her parents committed murder-suicide, and she doesn't believe it. So she has to become an amateur sleuth and find out who the real killer was. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Also, any questions for Erica? Anybody? How long did it take you to write the book, Erica?
Why Mama took me about 5 years.
Wow.
But of course, during it, I was writing all these other 400 short stories and things, but not fiction. Those were all nonfiction, which I can write. Today I wrote 3 that I'll send off to various. Sassy Magazine, mostly I send them to. In fact, there is one in Sassy Magazine from me today, came in featured today for December. So those I can jot those off in like an hour or so and then edit it, and that's it. But a novel to me is a different animal.
It sounds really interesting, Erica. It really does, in a mystery. So if you're into mysteries, check out Why Mama.
Okay,
Erica,
thank
thank
you.
you so much. We really appreciate it. And Frank Hyman, tell us about mushrooms, my friend. You got to unmute though.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I can unmute. So thanks, Don, for organizing this, and thanks for everybody for plugging in. And so let me see if I can position my book here where people can see it, because I have to move backwards. So the book is called How to Forage Mushrooms Without Dying, an absolute beginner's guide to 29 wild edible mushrooms. And I want to start off with a pro tip. My suggestion, based on the book is selling pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. The publishers ordered a second printing. And so my pro tip is get your book the way you want it. You figure out how you're going to get it published. You've got a title that you're really happy with. And then add at the end of the title, just tag on without dying. That really seems to matter a lot. They seem to like that part a lot. So let me know how that works for you. I'm going to use that at the end of all my future books. So yeah, so the story behind this book is, it's kind of a similar story to my first book was called Hentopia. It was like how to have backyard chickens without it being a pain in the ass. So you could go on vacation and not come home to dead chickens. And so both books are designed to solve the problems of chicken books and mushroom ID books. And what I mean by that is that my degree is I have a double major in horticulture and design. And design is not just a matter of choosing fonts and choosing colors. Design is really a problem-solving skill. And so design, fonts and colors might be part of that, but also just the whole structure. And so this book is a response to a lot of mushroom ID books that are, good enough, but not real good. Like a number of them, mostly they are written by mycologists for other mycologists. They've invested a lot of time learning a lot of important Latin words, and they want to use those a lot. And so the language can be kind of a challenge for novices who are not science people or not using Latin in their daily work. And even some of the books have problems like, well, they're showing you mushroom X, and there's like 4 things you need to look at to make sure you have mushroom X, but the book might only mention 2 of them, like that it's white on the inside and smells like almonds, and then they don't tell you enough other things. So I'm knowledgeable about this problem because I have like 40 mushroom ID books. So I've seen what's out there. And so this was like designed and structured to solve a lot of the problems. And the response I'm getting both from novices and from professionals in the reviews on Goodreads and the reviews on Amazon's is that people are really satisfied with that. But I want to say also, it's not a dry book about like how to identify mushroom A, B, and C. It's there are some of the pages are all in orange, like these, and here's the rest of the book is like the identification and details on like how to cook them and things like that. But the orange pages, I wanted those separate. So these are essays about the foraging life, and let's see if I can get this one close enough where you can see what's going on here. So this is perhaps the only known selfie of me. And the cloud behind me is a mushroom that growing out of an oak tree called a lion's mane mushroom. Only grows in winter, so they're out now. And I am standing on the top of an 8-foot step ladder in order to reach it. That's how high up in the tree it is. So I'm standing on the top. You know how on a step ladder, the top is this flat place and has writing on it that says, "Do not stand here," but it's flat. So to me, that's a mixed message. I think they need to like work on that somehow. But I had to stand on that part in order to reach the mushroom, and to harvest it. I normally carry a pocket knife, but it wasn't long enough. I had to borrow my wife's bread knife in order to have something long enough that would carve this thing into like 5 big chunks. And so each chunk went into a paper grocery bag, and it was just like stuffed overflowing. So I take these 5 paper bags full of mushroom home, and I'm very excited. It's late in the afternoon. It's like 3 o'clock or so. And I show it to my wife, and she goes, "Well, what are you going to do with all that?" Which I had not considered that. I was just like, "Hey, I found this. I'm going to bring it home." And she goes, "What are you going to do with that?" And I look at her, and I remember that in my 20s, I had run an organic tomato farm, and I had sold tomatoes to chefs. So I knew how that worked. So I look at her, and I say, "Honey, I'm going to take these bags to the downtown chefs, and I'm going to sell this to restaurants downtown." And she laughed at me. But I took off. I left 1 bag at home so we keep some mushroom and sell it to some friends and share with people. Not sell friends, but to share with our friends. And I took the other 4 bags downtown, and I came back less than 2 hours later with $351 in cash and checks. So I mentioned that not to brag, but I mentioned it just to say I was shocked to discover I had never sold any mushrooms before. I didn't expect to make any money from mushrooms at that point. That was like 10 years ago. And I was shocked to discover that there was such a huge demand for mushrooms, especially among certain chefs and even farmers markets. And so I mentioned that because if you are a self-employed person, or you're retired or semi-retired, or you want a little gig on the side, then the wild mushrooms is kind of like an easy way to do it. And it's much safer than you would think. The mushrooms, you can sell mushrooms to a chef for kind of the same price as they would pay for filet mignon at the market. I mean, the prices are ridiculous. And and it's easier to learn. I'm gonna wrap up with one thing. So I'm sure everybody watching is thinking, "Oh man, mushrooms, they're so scary and so dangerous. You could die. It's terrible." Well, the reason that you might think that, is because you grew up in an English-speaking country. Literally, this is the issue. Because outside of the English-speaking world, people just gather wild mushrooms like it's no big deal. They learn to tell the bad ones from the good ones, and it's not as hard to tell the difference as you would think. I mean, if you go traveling in Europe or South America or Asia, like the grandchildren can show you which mushrooms, don't eat that one, and that one's safe to eat. The English, somehow they got stuck on this idea. They wanted to separate themselves from people on the continent. And so the people on the continent are stupid and they're eating mushrooms that could kill you. And we're smart English people. We're not going to eat wild mushrooms. And then they colonize the US and Canada and Australia and New Zealand. And those are the places on the planet where people think mushrooms are like really scary and it's so dangerous and you can't tell them apart. Even experts die, which does not happen. Experts do not die.
Frank, I'm
So
going to cut you
anyway,
off, my friend.
yes, yes, sorry.
But please buy Frank's book if you were into
It's in
mushrooms.
any bookstore.
Any bookstore.
Yes.
Does anyone have a very quick question for Frank?
I have a quick question.
Elizabeth, super
I'll-
quick,
I'll make
super
it real
quick.
fast. Frank, I got my dog to pose in the middle of a fairy circle.
Yes.
Great big monster white mushrooms, and it was about 12 feet wide, and it was solid mushrooms all the way around him. I think that's fascinating.
I want to see the picture.
I'm gonna, if I find it, I'll send it to you. It's good.
Yes, please
that
do.
fascinates me, and that's all I had to say.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Frank,
Elizabeth.
thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Don.
This sounds like a terrific book. It really, especially if you're a chef. Anna, you're up.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just very happy to be here and to be part of this. And Don, thank you so much for organizing this. And I like to present you my book, which is called Good Morning, Mr. Dalton. And this book is actually contemporary fiction. But I'm not going to say women's fiction because women like it, but also men like it. And men read it, and men write me reviews, and men support me. So if you allow me, I'll just read a little bit. This is a story about Dafina, an attractive woman in her 40s who works in the family car service business. Her clients mainly comprise business executives and socialites. That's her daytime job. At night, she works on her stories, dreams to get her breakthrough as a writer and relocate to New York City. The relationship with her husband is not what she had hoped for when she moved from Europe. Clash of the cultures, money struggles, and never-ending harassment from his ex-family takes a toll on their marriage. All right, I'll stop here, and I'll just say that this is written through 4 characters and 4 different people. They are telling the story from their angle. It's very easy read, it's very dynamic, it's very playful. Many people who read the book told me, oh, it can be a movie, it can be a show, Netflix show, it can be like a theater play. So this is also the first part of the saga of 5 parts, but this is also like a standalone book. So if you read this book and later on, no, you are fine again. If you start from the second one that I'm working now on, again, you are fine. So everyone is like a standalone, but it's going to be like a part of 5 books. So I believe that everybody can relate to this book because it talks about relationships and about good relationships, about relationships in which we feel very lonely. So no matter who you are and where you're from, you will find a part of your heart in this book. And also it's very multicultural, but also I would like to mention what is the biggest compliment for me when people think it's a true story. Because in my writing, I always use part of my real life. Like we are owners of a car service company, and the background of this book is that. And the funniest question that people can ask me is, oh, is your husband Mr. Dalton? I said, I'm not going to tell you that, you know, you must figure it out. So check it out. It's really like an easy read, but it's thought-provoking. And I would like to thank you, Dawn, personally, that when I decided to go out and to publish it on Amazon, you supported me. And you said, be fearless, go on, just go ahead. And also I would like to thank all my friends in TAF who supported me wonderfully, who wrote me a great reviews, and who've been always there for me, and now also on my journey, like for the second part. So that's what I want to say. I would also like add that it's multicultural. So we have European culture, we have American, we have Asian. So it's really a fun read. Check it out. It's available on Amazon, and come back to me with your opinion.
Thank you, Otto. This sounds wonderful. Does anyone have a quick question? Anybody? All right. That sounds terrific. Thank you, Anna. We really appreciate
you.
it. And Mark Trevor, your turn.
Okay, I'm used to teaching kids with short attention span, so this is gonna be fast. Okay. My book that's me, about 8 years old. It's called The Misfit Chronicles, True Tales of Growing Up and Screwing Up in the 60s and 70s. So if you're a baby boomer, you probably enjoy this book. It's mostly humor, but a bit of history. It's very honest and genuine. There's things that are funny, scary, ridiculously stupid. Driving the wrong way, stoned in a blizzard. Just lots of knuckle-headed things that my dad kicked my ass for. Just again, if you're a boomer, and you were around in the 60s and 70s, you probably appreciate the stories here. They're all true. They're all kind of wacky and absurd. I seem like a boring person, but a lot of weird stuff happened to me as a kid. So anyway, it's a paperback. It's on Amazon. It's about 200 pages. It's also available on Kindle if you're more into the ebook thing. Like I say, it's $9.99, and if anyone at TAF is interested, I'll sell it to them for $5. So I can put my email in the chat, or Don, you can send that out.
Okay.
But that's it. Any
Awesome.
questions? I'm happy to tackle.
Any questions about Mark's wayward youth? Frank?
Yeah, can you just give us like one tiny example of a knuckleheaded thing? So, because I want to know about that.
Well, like I say, I mentioned we had a senior party when I was in high school, and I lived in Rochester, New York, which is right on the lake, and there's a blizzard. There's about a foot of snow. We drove about 30 miles out to this pavilion, and of course we were drinking and getting high, and so we came back the wrong way. So we were passing cars next to us on our one-way highway. So that's just kind of one knuckleheaded thing, but there's a lot in there. Yeah,
You're lucky to
I did
be alive,
knuckleheaded
dude.
stuff from the time I was about 5 till I barely graduated high school. So
Mark, thank you so much. That sounds like a Netflix movie is what this sounds like. So Linda Tyson, what do you have for us this evening?
Okay. I do mostly short stories. I've done longer pieces, but right now I'm doing mostly fiction, and most of it is fantasy. Most of my stories are in anthologies. I don't know if you can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Can
We
you
can.
see them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Dark Skies is published by Parsec Inc. in Pittsburgh. And this is a picture of Pittsburgh, believe it or not. Anyway, my story is one of, I think, 17 in the book. And Abyss and Apex also has a story of mine. These books are available on Amazon. Some of them, I think, can be gotten through Barnes and Noble. And they're just, if you like fantasy and science fiction, which I do, that's what most of the stories are. I don't know. I can read some of the back copy if you want me to do that.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the Abyss and Apex collection. It says, enter the worlds of Abyss and Apex, where a planet's inhabitants can shed their subjugation with the help of an ancient AI, where superheroes burn through evil, where assassins climb through castle windows to find magical surprises, and Viking women battle ghosts and the dead to serve the ruler of their underworld. Discover a spaceship in the desert, a time-traveling classic car, and an enhanced military canine turned detective. Meet an old woman who calls down avalanches, a high-tech Muslim mind gardener, and a magician who does origami with souls. Be part of a joint Chinese-American rescue of an astronaut, and visit a library that can read your mind. and discover a shape-shifting dragon. That's the kind of thing I write.
I love that, Celinda. Those sound like wonderful stories and great anthologies.
Yeah, I think they really are good. The Triangulation does one every year, and Abyss and Apex is a magazine, but they gather collections together about every 1 to 2 years. So yeah.
Anybody have a quick question for Celinda? All right, this sounds like some fun fiction, Celinda. Thank you so much for promoting that this evening.
Sure.
It sounds really exciting.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm kind of doing a naughty and nice package this evening. The naughty version of this is the anthology, to put this up here, Hot Takes, an anthology of erotic short stories edited by Dominique Wilde. Mark Cantrell and I, see if we put that out there, Mark Cantrell and I both have a number of short stories as well as other features in this particular book under various pseudonyms. I've got several plus an essay. Mark has a poem in there and some really fun science fiction. But the thing I'm most proud of about that particular book is my collaboration with Dominique Wilde on a 10,000 word short story called The Birthday Present. And that collaboration was a lot of fun and a really, really interesting experience for me as a traditional nonfiction writer, trying my hand at not only fiction, but erotic fiction as well. Prior to this, I had published just 2 short stories over the course of my career, including an erotic story for Penthouse Forum way back in the day. So I was really happy about this and very proud about my contributions. The second book I'm promoting, this is the nice part of Naughty and Nice, is Real Tears, the Beverly Washburn story by Beverly Washburn. Beverly is an actress. She got her start as a child. Her first movie was made when she was 6 years old. She was essentially a child prodigy actress, actually, who had the astonishing ability to cry very realistically on cue. And she made a lot of very notable movies over the course of her career. Superman and the Mole Man, Shane, The Greatest Show on Earth, Spider Baby, but perhaps most notable of all was Old Yeller. In fact, Beverly, with the passing of Tommy Kirk recently, Beverly Washburn is now the sole remaining cast member of Old Yeller. And Beverly reached out to me. We collaborated on this book. I'm extremely proud of the way it came out. Beverly's story is really interesting. She pulls no punches about her personal life and her career in Hollywood. And I have a very special incentive for those. If you buy this book and send me proof that you purchased the book, either print or whatever edition you get, you will receive a free inscribed autographed picture of Beverly Washburn from the movie of your choice. So it could be for you. If you buy this for a movie-loving friend or a family member, you can have the autographed picture inscribed to them instead. So that's my offerings, Hot Takes, and the Real Tears, the Beverly Washburn story. Very proud of both of those. Anybody have any quick questions? Mark, Trevor?
She talk about like the actors on the films, like John Wayne and stuff like that?
She
Yeah.
sure does. Yeah, she had just friendships with a tremendous number of people in Hollywood. Her television career is even more expansive than her movie career. In the 50s and 60s, Beverly was all over the place on television. Almost every show that you can think of, Beverly was on. Leave It to Beaver, Thriller, Wagon Train. You go back and she's been in those particular shows. And so she talks very frankly about her friendships with people. She talks about the experiences, some of them scary, about making the movies that she did. And she's very forthcoming about it. And it's a lot of fun. It's a really great read, especially if you're into movies. Anybody else? All right, awesome. Sherry Vick, you were up. Sherry? Oh, there's Sherry.
Sorry, I have to try to remember which button to push to unmute myself. Okay, my book. This is Keeping Christmas Magic. This is what the book looks like. And if it weren't for Karen Weiberg, I'm sure that book would never have been released, because somehow in one of the TAF workshops that she did with us, she convinced me that I could do this. So, but anyway, I don't regret it. I learned a lot by doing it. Not the writing, the publishing. I published this book myself through Ingram Spark. Anyway, so I want to tell you a little bit about the story. It came out last year, but it didn't exactly, people didn't exactly beat a path to my door, especially since there was a pandemic on and I couldn't get it in any bookstores. But I'll tell you a little bit about the story and then the type of people I think who would like this book, and they can answer any questions you have. This story is set in December of 2007, at the beginning of the Great Recession, when a lot of people were beginning to lose their jobs. And this particular person, who's the head of the household there, had been out of work for 11 months, no income from him. And he was the largest income in the family. He wasn't making any progress. He was in a church transition group. He went every week. He talked to people and helped them out with their job search, but he wasn't making any progress with his job search. And as December approached, things were really getting worse at home with the financial situation. And he also became attracted to a young woman in the group. So there's kind of like a little bit of, is he going to be led astray with his transition group? Meanwhile, his poor spouse, middle-aged spouse, is stressed out because she's paying all the bills and she knows how bad the situation is. So they're fighting in the very first chapter. She's looking for a job quite on her own that would cause them to move out of town and move from the home that they've had since their daughter was a toddler. Their daughter is now a first-year student in a very expensive private college. So there's a lot of financial pressure and there's a lot of difficulty in the family. The daughter's plotting to go home over Christmas vacation with her new boyfriend so she doesn't have to come home to the family where her parents are fighting. So who would like this book? I was thinking about who would like to read this book. Anyone who's experienced long-term unemployment probably would enjoy reading this book because you've been there. You know what it's like to wonder where you're ever going to find something else and how you're going to get by financially until the next job comes along. I know I've been through a lot of that myself. And in fact, the inspiration for the story came from my own layoff and my own transition group at church back in 2009. Anyone who's had to stretch themselves, had to turn themselves into somebody else, or really make a change to themselves in order to get a new job, maybe a career change, maybe step out of their comfort zone, do something that they've never done before. Anyone who's been a part of a couple who's undergoing financial stress and seeing that wear away on the relationship, because things do get stressful when you can't pay the bills and the creditors are calling and they're leaving messages on the phone. There's a pet at the center of the story. You may be able to see the picture of the cat. Anyone who's ever rescued a pet, because things change in the book largely because the man, the father, Bob, discovers this cat living in his garage in order to keep from freezing to death outside. He's a stray. And Bob takes pity on the cat, takes him to the vet, decides to adopt the cat. And what unfolds from that is it leads Bob to a place where he can find another job. Anyone who has a young adult leaving home or maybe about to leave home, and there's that tension about, am I going to want to be like my parents when I grow up, or am I going to want to do something else? Maybe I don't want to follow in their footsteps, right? Anyone who loves Christmas, because the book is all about keeping Christmas magic, which is, by the way, what they end up naming the cat. Keeping Christmas magic. So if you love Christmas, if you love happy endings, I think you would love the book. It's on sale on Amazon, and you probably can order it through a bookstore. This is print on demand, so don't waste any time if you're going to do that. But probably can order it through a bookstore, but it is print on demand, and it retails for $11.99. And if you would like to have a copy from me, I still have probably 30 copies in my closet. I'll be happy to I'll be happy to discount them to $10 even, including the shipping, and send it off to you so you can just email me afterwards. What questions do you have?
Any questions for Vicky? Sherry, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Sherry, this sounds awesome. What a terrific book for the holidays.
It looks like
Is it illustrated inside?
No,
Okay.
I just hired the illustrator for the front and the back. And that was an illustration that I hired for the book.
Karin, did you have a question?
I was just going to point out that Erica had asked how the cover was created.
Oh.
Yep. So you already answered it.
Sherry, thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you for
awesome.
having me.
Cheng, tell us a little bit about your book, please.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me, Don, and everybody. So I don't do this often, and if I'm rambling too much, and you know why, though. But I gotta push myself out, like this way. Otherwise, I would exist it. Not here, not anywhere. I think I come a long way, though. I just have to keep pushing myself out. Part of it is, I think part of it is because members in the TAF, especially Don, so supportive, so encouraging, and give me a kind of illusion of thinking, hey, I could do something, I could do a little more, but again, I have done something. So today, I'm going to brag about my book again, and so I wouldn't. This one, I wouldn't say too much about the book anymore because I talked a little bit too much already over the last 3-4 months. This book is so new. It started out in August, and suddenly like half the world started to kind of hear about the book. So I couldn't understand today's technology, good and bad. It is what it is. So one big guy can do everything. But again, what I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened after the book is out, and what I learned, and to share a little bit experiences about that part with all of you, because I'm a new author, and this is the first book, and happened to be something at every step of the way as a learning experiences. So I found out though promoting the book is so much harder than I have ever expected. I thought that when my book is out, I guess everybody's gonna want to have one. So I thought, Jesus, I mean, this is yeah. And again, so blank marketing is not going to work. I mean, so who knows me though? Anyway, my first line is that nobody ever heard this name, Cheng Wong, as an author. That is a very true statement, and even today. But what I found, what is working so well is in-person events. Locally, people kind of know you, and then they can put the face to the book, and they are so excited. I couldn't believe how some of the people are so excited about my book, including TAF members, and they read the book. They left amazing, insightful reviewers, and so that gave me a lot of thinkings about my book. And the award I got, that gave me another thinking, though. This message kind of, it's not for nothing. Some people get it, and they give me a lot of thinking about what else I'm going to do. And some people bought 15 books. Another 10, another 11, another 13 locally. And they give my book to the library. Now my book is in UNC library, 3 books in Duke. And they started them, and they're going to talk about the book to their graduate students as part of the lecture, because it has history, cultural, immigrants, and everything. And one of my friends sent me a message saying, hey, bring 5 books to me and sign your name to the guy that I'm going to give it to. I said, yeah, oh, great, though. You give me the name, then I'll do that. Oh, my signature is terrible. Don knows that, though. But again, I got to, see, I got to learn everything. He gave me the name, and one of the name is Roy Williams. And he told me this is his personal friend. He thinks that Roy will love your book. And this is going to be my personal holiday gift to that guy. Gee, Roy Williams. I know the guy, but he never knows me. And give me a lot of thinking. Geez, I think, maybe I got something to give though. So again, though, point is that the book is so hard to sell to the strangers on Amazon because there are 20 million books, and it's just who cares this guy though? I mean, unless you are somebody with the last name Gates or whatever, So, but again, it doesn't matter though. It takes a time and takes something else, but most of all, give me a lot of thinking. Once the reviewers coming in, and every reviewer is like holding a mirror to see myself, and in this case, to see my book, and what is I done right, and what does people get, and what else that's supposed to working, and again, through this reading and writing and contemplating and all of that, and I think, you know, I want to do something more, and my book maybe is good in the way that facing the realities, especially today, the realities of how people are bitterly divided. And I noticed that science, or even technology, even AIs, and even EVs, all the buzzwords, they are not going to heal the nation. Even wealth is not going to heal the nation. More money is not going to help. And what else is going to help, though, if we are on a slipping road? I'm kind of serious guy. I'm from different cultures and everything. I can relate. And is there a hope for us in the future of anything? I kind of think about it. That's going to be my next thing. That if I want to write another book, which I probably will, I want to, you know, I want to be, you know, on a higher ground. I want to address a little more issue. My book has been about those things, cultural related, politics and everything, reflection and introspection. But again, the next one, it's going to be even better though, if I could do that. So it's going to be, I think the hope is going to be in arts and humanity. It's not about science, believe me. It's not about engineering even. And I think the humanity thing is a broad topic spanning social science, arts, and language, on which I will kind of started that and you know, kind of use that as my future goal. So that'll be about it. The book is everywhere if people are interested. So, and I'll save some time and I'll probably pass that away. Thanks, Don.
It is an awesome book, I can tell you that. Does anyone have any quick questions for Cheng? Anybody?
Can you hold the book up again?
All right, yeah. Well, thanks for that though, yeah.
From Tea to Coffee.
And is it a memoir?
Yeah, it's a memoir. The title is so self-explanatory. It's about my own lifetime story, extending across half a century and 2 continents and then some. So it's figuratively speaking, but it's all true with real names. If some of the names in here cannot be mentioned in the book, though, because that's really, you know, I should put a little more in there, but my publisher say, hey, you know, you cannot put everything in there. That's another topic about how the publishing part of it is. Make me a different person, believe me.
Cheng, thank you so much.
All right.
It's an awesome book. And Karin, tell us about chickens, please.
Chickens. I have chickens. You know, Frank and I, we should be buddies. I have chickens. And I'm also a poet. And I started writing poems because chickens are so entertaining. They just inspired me to write poems. So I started writing haiku about my chickens. And I just sort of collected them for a while. And then I met an artist who happened to do a lot of work with collage, and she did a lot of birds. I said, Dawn, we need to do a book of chicken haiku. So I wrote the poems and she did the illustrations. And so here is, if you could see, here's what it looks like. It's yeah. I'm not sure if you can see very well. We've actually also created some cards. So if you don't mind, I'm going to put up some images for you so you can see the illustrations because they're so awesome. Hang on just a sec. I'll get that up. And I'll read just a few. When I started studying haiku, I was reading a book that my grandmother had. It was from Harold Henderson. It was written in the 1950s. And he did a lot of translation. And he actually rhymed the translation out of from the Japanese poetry that he did, which is kind of odd because that's not the way most American or English speaking haikus would write, but it kind of grew on me. So a lot of mine in the book are actually, they do actually have a little rhyme. And so I don't take my haiku too seriously. This book is kind of entertaining. It's good for kids. It's good for adults. It's good for chicken lovers. So I'll just read 3 of them. And when you read haiku, you read them through twice. So I'll just read them twice because they're so short. So the first one is wind blusters, chicken in their bloomers, feather dusters. wind blusters, chickens in their bloomers, feather dusters. So haiku works with putting images next to each other. So if you've ever seen chickens when it's windy out, they're very funny. They do look like feather dusters. And I'll point out in the art, Dawn uses a lot of old books and old catalogs. So if you look really closely at all of the collage that she does, and then she paints on top of it, there's funny little things like, you know, like you've got ladies' drawers talking about bloomers. And if you look closely, I think you'll see feather dusters in there somewhere. I can't remember where, but she's very clever with the art. Sorry, I'm trying to get next. All right, here's another one. This is one of my favorites. Peeps climb on grass nestled mama, backyard jungle gym. Peeps climb on grass nestled mama, backyard jungle gym. And then the last one actually made this into a holiday card this year. Ramp closes, shuffle in the roost, moon poses. So our chickens, in a lot of chicken houses, the hen house, they there's usually a ramp that they go up at night to go upstairs to sleep. They're kind of a roosting animal, so they go up there and, you know, tuck themselves in. So we close the ramp, and you always hear these little noises as they move around, and everybody gets their favorite spot. So ramp closes, shuffle in the roost, moon poses. So that's one of my favorites. I just love that art.
Karin, where's the book available locally?
You can get it at Quail Ridge. I think in the link that I gave you that lists where it's available, there's a couple other shops around here where it is, but Quail Ridge should have some on hand. I have some on hand, but you can also find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you know, the online websites that you can find it there. There's a hardback and a paperback. And we also have a shop on Etsy where we have cards and prints and things like that. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Karin and her chickens?
I have one. Are the illustrations watercolor?
Some of them are. There's a lot of collage. There's some watercolor. I think some might be acrylic. I'm not entirely sure. There's also a few in the book that are pencil, like pencil drawings that, let's see if I can find one real quick.
And I missed who did them.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn Rozo. She is based in Raleigh, so I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is one of the pencil drawings.
Those are great drawings.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yours is another book I want now.
They're really good. They're good gift books. I gotta say. When people see them in person,
And I belong to a couple of poetry group, and we get together, you know, Zoom, and read poetry. It'll be really fun to read some of those.
They are fun. And my poetry group, I have a poetry group too. They actually helped me, you know, proofread it and make sure it worked. And so it's
excellent.
Great to have a support like that. And like
that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everybody, I think this was a really fun and very successful book promo party. I want to thank all of you again for joining us this evening. A lot of great books to consider for the holidays, and I hope that you'll continue to support your fellow TAF authors. Tomorrow, I will resend the document that has the sale links for all of the books that were discussed this evening. I'll send that out, so they'll give you an opportunity to buy them online or locally at a bookshop. I want to thank all of you again for coming this evening. Join us, really appreciate it. And I think we'll do this again next year because I think this was a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it.